Hello everyone, my name is Diego Forte. I work for the University of the Savior and the National Service of Food Sanity and Quality in Argentina. I'm also part of the group Ecolinguistics Argentina. And today I want to make a brief introduction to my work on ecolinguistics and colonial identities in Latin American countries. My presentation for today is titled Coloniality and Industrial Environmentalism, the Role of Ecolinguistics in Latin American Discourse Studies. There's a nice picture of me. And also some clues to find me, my email and my profiles in Academia and ResearchGate. If you want to talk about this, discuss these things, or you want to contact me, I'll be delighted to talk to you. So, main goals for today. As I said before, colonial identities in the national spirit, in discourse studies, and the impact of ecological discourses and the categories applied to non-humans and nature. I also want to point for an alternative or a way out of the problems we are going to address by deconstructing hegemonic and anthropocentric discourses. First, I would like to start with a quote from Viviane de Mello Resende, a critical discourse analyst from Brazil, and she states that colonialism of knowledge in Latin America has led as consequence to the forming of a body of researchers competent in understanding and applying theories and methods, but who are petrified at their own ideas as they always need to be legitimized by foreign thinkers. The problem is that creativity plays a fundamental role in scientific progress and in creating theory. Our low scientific self-esteem has made us hostage to imported progress, given that we do not see ourselves, in many instances, as being able to contribute effectively in developing the theories we use. Actually, what Resende points here is that we as peripheral researchers adopt foreign theories, European theories, and apply it to local corpora. Our main contribution usually is related to analyze local problems with theoretical tools imported from central countries. And that, as we are about to see, is not just a problem in discourse studies, but on part of the national spirits and the politics discourse. Critical discourse studies in Latin America has a strong tradition, starting with Eliseo Verón in 1968, Adolfo Prieto in 1973, and the courses, the work developed by the Linguistic and Literary Studies Department in the Mexico College in '76. These are the first big works in the region. Also, we must add all the work made by Brazilian researchers following the French tradition. Eliseo Verón, an Argentinian researcher that made most of his career in France, and his first work, Behavior, Structure, and Communication, are one of the cornerstones of the theory, semiotic and linguistic critical theories in the area. Also, Adolfo Prieto, who later devoted his work to literature, but in '73 he held the chair of linguistics and semiotics in the University of Buenos Aires, presenting a very critical discourse theory and critical orientation to discourse studies. The Colegio de Mexico, or Mexico College, in '76 made a big introduction to Greimas theories starting a strong tradition in critical semiotics and critical linguistics. Elvira Arnoux, another Argentinian researcher, mentioned that discourse analysis has reached a great level of development and a particular profile in Latin America, motivated by the history of the continent, the positioning of researchers, and the strong presence of language sciences in its academic and educational institutions. Its specificity, beyond national traditions, is based on the scope of the works, the strength and continuity of the organizations that bind them together, and many of the networks that are formed, and on the shared tasks. Barros stated that semiotic studies in South America are no longer peripheral, but part of a semiotics in capital letters. So, besides the coloniality, there seems to be some kind of pride in the work they all developed. But in any case, what we are doing mostly is to apply these foreign theories to local corpora and work on local problems, assuming in an international validity of the European theories. So, European theories has a strong influence in discourse studies and CDA in Latin America. Sorry. As we have mentioned, the works of Greimas, also Péchet and the whole French school, critical linguistics and critical discourse analysis has had a huge impact in the region with the works of researchers such as Fowler and the whole group of critical linguistics. Actually, Hodge-Kress Language as Ideology is a book that nowadays has a very big influence. Fairclough and Language and Social Change is another work that has had a huge impact. And of course, all that Van Dijk has developed regarding linguistics and ideology. In this regard, Resende again mentions that despite an already consolidated tradition of discursive studies in Latin America, with a prominent position in postgraduate programs in the area of literature and linguistics, and a pulsating calendar of annual events in the area, it can be said that there is a lot of application of the imported knowledge and little local theoretical or methodological creativity. Discourse studies in Brazil are basically divided into two major lines: French discourse analysis and English discourse analysis. As we have mentioned, this is valid for the whole region. Only the names by which we know these strands of discursive studies already tell us about the coloniality of the field. This coloniality of discourse knowledge, more immediately, means a great effort to apply theories considered universally valid and little modified in the situated context, but it also has implications for being a discourse analyst in this place of subalternity in the academic field, this space that Latin American discourse researchers occupy in relation to our peers from the global north, and on the power to think of theoretical alternatives. This is the point we want to signal to strongly mark coloniality in the minds of the researchers, but that correlates with the coloniality of the local discourses, not necessarily academic. We are going to see how this coloniality operates in ecological and environmental perspectives, not only in research areas, but in the common sense of the inhabitants and the governments. As an example, we are going to show the case of Argentina. Current president of Argentina, Alberto Fernandez, a few years ago stated publicly that to face the climate problem is a moral must. But this statement presented a few problems. This is, he made this publicly, and this is the webpage of the government of Argentina. What he said was, what is Latin Americans' fault when many areas become desertified and what are used to be productive ceases to be so? And what is Africa's fault in suffering what it suffers? We really have to deal with climate change and solve all the damage that was generated by the ambition of the powerful to continue winning at any cost, and the deniers who said that climate change did not exist and continue to subject the world to more poisoning. One thing what we must mention as a good thing in this statement is that he's considering not only Latin America, but Africa, and also he mentions Asia as as peripheral areas, and he's blaming the United States and European countries for the pollution and the climate crisis. But however, from a material perspective, this is not exactly the case for Latin America, because the area is actually a big producer of pollution from many sources. But from this mention, I almost forgot from what the president said. He's placing the region in a victim's place. So, ecological and environmental perspectives regarding discourse studies. The two main currents that approach environmental problems, ecological problems in discourse are Latin American environmental thought, PAL, in Spanish, by its initial in Spanish, Pensamiento Ambiental Latinoamericano, and of course, CDA. But both of these perspectives approach the problem through what Ansel and Hoffman considers industrial environmentalism. They actually mention it, they call it fatalist industrialism. Which is to say that the approaches are perspectives that consider climate change as a resource crisis and not an anthropocentric one. We are not going to deconstruct the whole model and change our model, not in materiality, not discursively, but we are going to continue producing in the same way and see if we can find a way out through the same logic that brought us here. And this is obviously valid not just for regions like Latin America, but also for Europe and the United States. Corbetta et al. Are part of the group of that holds these perspectives, and they state that we believe that the necessary basis to dismantle the unique and linear thinking that the hegemonic and Eurocentric development model has built are in Latin American education with regional and territorialized theory capacity. Thought in its most integrative and plural sense, an environmental education supported by a conceptual matrix that has as structuring axis the complexity of interdisciplinary, the thematic transversality of the environmental, the dialogue of knowledge, environmental ethics, in order to assume the challenge of a new civilizing ethos. It's a little complicated, but as it has been posed, but it doesn't say much about what they want to do, with what they really want to do with a productive model and a discursive model. In any case, we must bear in mind is that environmental is not ecological. And as we pointed out, this is the key. And we have to take our mask out and think that if we are talking about environment, we are talking about the areas we consider useful for human life and not thinking about humans as a part of an ecosystem. And this is the important category to deconstruct environment, because if we do not deconstruct this category, we are still thinking that we own the planet and we own the environment. And this is what allows us to keep on producing the way we are producing and not deconstructing our productive model or discursive model. Then, Latin American environmental discourse approaches pose a discussion about distribution of the resources, but as we have said, not a discussion of the productive model, and keep an industrial environmentalist perspective. But Svampa and Viale mentions that the massive agri-food model presents a huge impact in our health and the lives of animals, plants, and fields. It's a model constructed by big international companies. Agribusiness model is responsible for the main socio-environmental trouble in Argentina, or potential Chernobyl. So these two researchers are part of the few that discuss the productive model and the discursive model that is allowing this kind of relationship with our ecological system. And they go on. In our country, Argentina, the social and human sciences, with a few exceptions, continue to turn their backs on these issues. There are many who still defend a limited and partial approach to the environmental issue, more linked to the hegemonic perspective than to the holistic issues and regional languages of assessment that have emerged in recent decades in the heat of struggles. He mentions all kinds of social struggles. Even in progressive sectors, a kind of indifference seems to have settled, if not intellectual laziness, very functional to the crisis, by the way, which on the one hand tends to accept the questioning and criticism of the current development models, but on the other, without meditation or solid arguments, maintains and repeats like a mantra that the problem is that there are no other alternatives. And this is what the current discursive model states, that there are no other alternatives. This is the industrial environmentalism. This is what the Ministry of Environment and Sustainable Development of Argentina mentioned in 2018 as the sources of pollution in the country. Sorry for use the Spanish graphic, but I wanted to put exactly what the ministry put on their page. Agriculture and animal farming represents the 39% as the energy production represents the 53%. In red, the energy, and in blue, the agriculture and animal farming. Home residues and industrial processes, according to the ministry, represent only 4% each of the pollution production. These are official numbers. So, considering that one of the main industries in the region is agriculture and animal farming, 39% of the part of pollution production is not what the president said. We are not responsible. Yeah, we kindly are. 39 is a huge number for the region. So, by killing animals, we are killing ourselves and our ecosystem. And how do we get out of this? First of all, we have to start considering that we are not alone and we do not own the planet, and other species has the same rights we have to respect the ecosystem. That transversal perspective in discourse studies seems to be the most elaborated way to get out of the problem. Actually, given the European hegemonic models in critical discourse approaches, gender studies and critical animal studies are taking the flag and deconstructing in a more effective way these kind of categories, the hegemonic categories. But nevertheless, they are still not considered by Latin American CDA. There are a few works that adopt some of these perspectives. And I actually like these perspectives, gender studies and critical animal approaches, because they tend to deconstruct anthropocentrism, coloniality, speciesism, androcentrism, white supremacy and racism, poverty and exclusion, and all these kind of things that in many ways critical discourse analysis are not approaching. Perhaps critical discourse analysis, of course, deals with white supremacism, racism, poverty and exclusion, and actually with coloniality, but not with speciesism and anthropocentrism. Perhaps nowadays, given the importance gender studies are having today, some of works that deconstruct androcentrism are entering in critical discourse analysis, but not necessarily speciesism. And what androcentrism poses is this transversal category, right? In the deconstruction of this transversal category. So, in a certain way, we must start addressing our surroundings and the other species that we share the planet with. Then, anthropocentrism and Eurocentric thinking are one of the two main categories that allow to enter and deconstruct categories like human, white, male, Christian, heterosexual. This is why both critical animal studies and gender studies are so important to approach these issues and these ecological issues. Because it is not enough thinking about resources. You must deconstruct the category of resource and look for agency in all participants involved. And the different agency the different humans have, but also the agency other species has. We have to place everyone in a different place, but this is made through discourse analysis. So, critical ecolinguistic perspective allows to consider we humans are part of an ecosystem and not the owners of it. Also consider that environment is a small category that does not reflect the real scope of the crisis. And we can think that perhaps it's not accurate to speak about a climate crisis, but an anthropocentric crisis, because it's actually this category that we do not deconstruct, and what is key to understand discursively that we are constructing our oppositions as if we are owners and we have a complete control of what is happening in the planet. So more or less, this is all what I wanted to say today. And of course, it's a brief introduction. And any questions or whatever you want me to say, I would be glad to hear you. Thank you very much.